I'm Jesse. I'm running LoveCry.
And I'm Anthony. I'm volunteering with LoveCry. And I wanted to touch on a topic that Jesse and I have discussed a few times, and I think is a very important topic. It's a very timely topic, which is extremism, and also on a personal level. So we have a personal level of extremism. So, I mean, I've heard people say to me many a time, like, I'm not vaxxed, and all my friends that are vaxxed, like, I can't talk to them anymore, or like, or I can't talk to someone who's a Trump supporter. I can't talk to somebody who's a conservative. I can't talk to somebody who doesn't, I don't know, put a pride flag in their car. Like, so this extremism where we kind of, I don't know, to me, it's kind of egoic. Like that person doesn't feel like I do, and so we're looking at differences in people and alienating ourselves from people, whether they're friends, family, rather than looking at our commonalities, like we're supposed to be different, and why, like, why do people cut off their nose to spite their face? Like they cut someone out of their life that is part of their social net. So they're actually hurting themselves. But, what is it that drives someone to do such a negative thing for their health?
I was going to say a lot of times too with that, they kind of like, instead of saying it, they'll withhold the judgment. So like say you're going in a conversation and they're just thinking that they're right regardless. They don't even care what you're saying, but you're saying it, but they're just like kind of appeasing to you, but really they think you're an idiot. They're putting you down, thinking that your choices, your decisions are stupid or against yourself or unhealthy.
So these are covert people. Like, so instead of overtly saying, hey, like, get out of my life because you don't see it like I do, like, they pretend that they're talking to you. They pretend that they're tolerant of your point of view, but inside they're like, what a schmuck, what an idiot.
Those are worse. Those are worse. Yeah, wow. The overt ones are much easier to deal with. Well, not easier to deal with, but at least you know what they're thinking and feeling about you and their position. So when you're dealing with someone who's just like placating to you and appeasing you, and you kind of feel awkward and unplaced, but it doesn't make sense because they're agreeing that, they're showing that, this
they're
makes
giving
sense
you space to talk.
Yeah.
They're giving you space for your point of view.
Yeah, they
look like they're giving you space for your point of view.
Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of like blocked off. So you're kind of like your feelings are just going and dropping on the floor. So you're depleting yourself. And they're just judging you, thinking you're worse. And you're sharing these thoughts, your beliefs, and they're shooting them to the ground for you. They're just stepping on them like you're nothing. And that causes worse problems than someone saying it to your face, because then at least it's not coming from inside you.
Right. Also, it'll make that person start to doubt themselves, and it'll make them feel depleted and down and maybe depressed and just mixed up. They're just going to feel mixed up, right?
Because they're trusting you. Like say if it's a friend or someone close to you, they're trusting you. And if you're just being a friend and saying, well, you're an idiot, or you're not...
Like internally you're saying you're an idiot.
Exactly. Right. If you're not, you're not supportive, you're thinking unhealthy, you're not for society, you're against us. Like all these things are judgments, I believe, of the ego, because our position isn't strong enough for us to believe in, so we have to shoot others down. And then by shooting others down, we feel better about our beliefs because they're stupid, not us. And that's what
So that's the weakness that's fueling this stuff. So whether it's someone overtly saying, you're cut out of my life because you voted red and I'm a blue guy, or you voted blue and I'm a red guy. So there's the overt one, and then there's the covert one, which is like, okay, yeah, you voted blue and I voted red, but that's cool. But inside they're like, what an asshole. And so both of these are harmful to the other side. And you're saying it comes from the ego not being sure of itself. So I'm not really sure if I'm right, but if I make that other person wrong, then I'm going to try to make myself feel more right.
Yeah, it makes their point sound more valid because you're wrong. You're not in the right. You're actually against society. So if you're against it, I must be for it. I must be doing what's right if you're not.
So the ego doesn't like to be kind of open, I guess. It wants to put itself in a box. Like, this is who I am, right? Yeah. So if you diminish that egoic need to just know what box you're in, you can say, well, okay, this is how I feel right now. Let me feel this person out. I might change my mind, but I might not. But let me just openly listen to them rather than judging them before they've even spoken, so that nothing they say is actually going to reach me.
And then that's also difficult when it's two people, because both people need to be reciprocating that as well. And if it's one person doing that, you're still not going to get to any real answers or solutions, because it's a two-way street. It's not, It's not just a one-way path. So if both people aren't doing it, it can end up harmful and unhealthy and build distance and separation within the relationships that you're having.
So let's say there's something you feel real strongly about, and you're talking to somebody who you know feels differently, or you're feeling like potentially they could feel differently. Like, what attitude do you bring into that? You know, how do you talk to that person, you know, who's in your life, whether it's a colleague, a friend, a family member? What spirit do we like? How do we do it? How do we talk to someone who feels so differently than us?
Yeah, that's very difficult. Like I said, because it takes two. So you can only be as good as you can be, right? Like you can only be in control of your own actions at any given time. So no matter what you do, you can't you can't make someone be a certain way for you.
But maybe you being a certain way will influence them to also let their guard down a bit.
Yeah,
it's possible.
No, it's. I think it's your relation to it, and maybe probably also your language that you use.
Yeah, like try not to trigger them. Try not to be like a rock. Try to be more like water. You know.
Yeah, like try to show that you're given understanding. Like try to show that okay, this is why I don't understand, or like you know what I mean. Like so you're giving your point of view, and then they could give their point of view back, so you could come to an understanding about it together. But rather than if yours is the only one that's right, people feel that. Like they feel that, and then they get defensive automatically with you, and it gets shuts down the conversation, and those things are
it doesn't become a real conversation anymore. It just becomes like,
and it's important to look at yourself. Like that's what I'd say the key part is to look at your own feelings, your biases, your judgments, like your social location, where you come from, your history, because all those things impact the way you see things, judge things, and I was going to say perceive things again.
So to be aware that we are conditioned in a certain way up until this point in time, you know, that we're not neutral. So we've got conditioning. It's family conditioning, society conditioning, your friendship group conditioning, what you've been focusing on, that conditions you. And so we all inhabit our own world in a way.
Because like all these beliefs that we've had kind of form who we think we are. And then when these beliefs get rocked or shaken, who are we? You know, it's the panic. So then it's this defense. You know, the ego loves it. You know, fight for me. You know, defend me.
The ego wants you to know who you are, and you're a certain way. You're a certain kind of person.
I know. Maybe there's nothing more to you.
Maybe the truth is we're more fluid than we think we are. You know, maybe that's the real truth. And it's not like the ego has to be like, I don't know, run over by a car. It just needs to be assured that, hey, we're going to survive, even if we don't have this concretized, you know, stiff, you know, box that we can live in. And, you know, I'm a conservative or I'm a whatever, I'm an anarchist. Like we don't have, so just assuring the ego, you know, that it can survive.
When you look at those boxes in families, usually what stems from that is mental health. You know, like, so when we're so rigid to have it this way, if you look at most families that are like that, it's strict, hard. What do your kids do? What do they do when they become adults? They rebel against you.
Yeah.
You know, they turn on it.
There's the preacher's son or the preacher's daughter, right? There's an example.
Yeah, so those boxes, we may think that that's what is necessary because of our own experiences in life to protect them. But really, it's the love that we learn from those experiences that will protect them. And being able to love and accept those things and not integrate it into who you are as a person will set, like, I think, your family free, your own self free, to be able to communicate in ways that you're not so, I don't know what to say, adamant on your way is right. You know, because if your way is the only way, then what are the rest of the people going to live like?
There's no room. You know? There's no room there. You know? Exactly. I mean, this is a case that I brought up before, but it's a great case. So this black guy who experienced a lot of racism growing up as a child, and then he met a KKK member, and he just talked to him. He just let the KKK member talk, and the KKK member was saying stuff like, you know, you black people just inherently aren't as good as white people at many, many things. And he didn't he would have been really correct to say, you're so wrong, you're such an asshole. But he just heard him out. Like, okay, I want to know what you believe and what you think. So as the black guy gave the white KKK guy lots of space to just express himself, then the white guy could actually not be defensive, and he could start examining these things. Like, okay, what I'm explaining to this black guy about black people, do I really feel that? Is that really true? Right? So he would never have questioned himself if the black guy was all like, you're wrong, you're an asshole, right? And he would have been correct in doing that. But he had that love for a fellow human to say, I'm just going to give him space. And with that space, then you're actually, when you don't fight something, then you're more likely to win over it, to win it.
To break that.
It's the paradox, because the more you try to break it, the more tough it's going to get against you. But the more you just let it be, and you're not pushing against it, then it's like, do I really feel like that?
Because it's similar with parent alienation too. So when your child is alienated from you, in this book, Divorce Poison, they tell you that it's the more you fight against it, even though you feel like you're in the right and that what's happening is not right, I guess. Sorry for the. You entrench it more. You isolate them more. You create separation further rather than bringing them closer together. So trying to understand their pain, understand where they're coming from, and meeting them there with your heart, with your love, it's very healing. And thus, like, I've had to experience that with my daughter with parent alienation. It's really isolated us. It's really separated us because there's so many years in between and so much conditioning of the thoughts to hate, to be against me, to think I'm a bad person, that if I took those things personally, I would just be fighting her. And then the person,
she would perceive you as being, a tough, angry dude.
And the person who made the conditioning gets away with it. I'm focused on her, upset, mad, and angry, instead of at the actual issue and problem that created this from happening. Because it's easier to target her than it is to target a system or a belief of people. Sorry. So yeah.
So it's about, what space. So what space are we creating walking into something? But yeah, that story to me was a miracle. So you can move mountains with the right intention, and you don't have to, if you have a discussion with someone, like let's say you feel a certain way and they feel that way, you're not going to expect that, boom, they're going to do this. And once, no matter what kind of divine space you create for them, but have that love and patience to just, even if they don't change at all, they perceive you in a very high way, because you've had the grace to give them the space to express themselves, even them knowing that it's not what you think, but you gave them that space and that really
and
melts
their respect,
people. Yeah, you get their respect,
and you give them respect too. So then, regardless of their choices and decisions, it kind of plants a seed that maybe this anger, hatred isn't necessary. Maybe there's something more to this.
And
the more interactions that they have with people, with those types of communications, then it starts to really ponder and question. But if it's constant hate, constant like attitude, name calling, degradation, then you're going to end up with the same animosity. You're just going to constantly butt heads. I'm right. My God's better. This is better. My way. And then you end up with separation, competition, and everyone fighting amongst themselves, creating issues. Well, the system sits there.
Yeah. Yeah, we've succeeded because we've divided and conquered you. You're more controllable because we've got the Black Lives Matter against the whites. We've got the Hamas against the Zionists. We've got the liberals against the conservatives. We've got the Republicans against the Democrats. And, look at that commonality you have. You're all human beings on this planet trying to survive, trying to do the best that you understand. And if you want to give somebody a new understanding, going back to the example of the KKK guy and the black dude, he planted a seed. It's not like the first meeting he had with them, the guy left the KKK. No, he didn't. And he was a leader in the KKK, by the way, not just like a minion. And it took a few years, but he left the KKK and he gave his robe to this dude. You can probably find his story on YouTube. He's actually happens to be a jazz pianist, the black fellow, and then the white guy. I don't know what his day job was besides wearing a white hood. I don't know what his day job was, but to me, both men get a lot of respect because I don't intimately know the KKK guy. What was, as you talked about conditioning, what did his family teach him? What did his friends growing up teach him? What did his society growing up teach him? Who was he hanging with? Who was he influenced with? Who was he reading? We don't know any of these things. But one man and his grace changed this KKK member. And that could be a stand-in for anything. It could be someone who has a radically different point of view than you. But at the very least, you're going to have that commonality. You're going to have that mutual respect. I saw there was a New York rap group, and one guy was like a Jew with the curls and the kippah, and then the other guy was like a Palestinian. They're like making rap music together, and there's women in the Middle East that are Palestinian and Jewish, and they're like getting together and saying, we want peace, and they have peace between them. So this stuff affects globally. So as Jesse's made this point so many times, who we're being individually has a global effect. Every one of you is a pebble that's getting thrown into this pond. So what waves are you creating? Are you creating waves of grace and creating space? Because, maybe possibly you're wrong about something, and it would be nice if somebody gave you that space to just let you express.
Guaranteed. We're all wrong with something.
And that would give you that space in spite of that, and focus on your commonalities, because a human being is a social being, and we're stronger because of our social connections, because of our friends, because of our family that we can connect with. So we have to know how to do that, and that's part of what these videos are hoping to teach. And I'm learning as I'm presenting this video, because Jesse's been an incredible influence on me.
And it's like inviting them in kind of thing. So instead of rejecting them and in their beliefs, you're inviting them in and sharing your beliefs. Sharing why you think this way why this approach is better than that approach. And then you could kind of work it through with each other and try to understand, well, maybe for this type of person or someone experiencing these things, that might have worked better for them. But with these experiences, this is a better approach. And so those are all things that need to be intertwined instead of generalizing everything like we all try to do to make it so that this works for everyone, even though we say that our differences are what make this world better. But then we don't want those differences. We're like, shut up, assimilate. You don't know what you're doing. And then that causes that animosity because they're trying to be something that they're not. And then you're angry, and then someone steps on your toe, but it's not the system, so it's a lot easier to attack them because you don't have to worry about what they're going to do. Yeah, they're going to yell at me, so what? Look at them, they're idiots. But then the system, if you really start to challenge them and say, well, I don't like this policy, then you'll see a difference and change of what they think of you. They'll start to attack your mental health. They'll start to discredit you and break you slowly over time so that it looks like you did it to yourself. It's very intelligent but cruel. And this is our system, and we are avoiding it to fight with each other. And that's a serious issue to me because they are purposely controlling our minds and the way we think through the news, advertisements, our phones, and we're mad at each other for our beliefs.
Because a system that's in place, whether it's a media system, a financial system, a country system, a governance system, a system wants to keep itself in power. So if you have a system with power, it wants to stay in power. And one of the ways that it wants to stay in power, and this is an age-old trick, is divide and conquer. Divide, divide, divide. So why do they say united we stand? Because it's true.
Yeah,
so get united with your brothers and sisters and look at your similarities.
Because even when someone said to me, make a difference by voting, and that kind of irritates me a little bit because I'm like, who am I going to vote for? Like Democrat? I mean, not Democrat. Conservative or liberal. Because NDP, they're not it's kind of like wasting your vote because they don't get enough votes to get up there. So I kind of lost my track. Damn it.
about a system. Like, how do you, like if we're skirting around fighting each other rather than uniting and saying, hey, this system is shortchanging us as humanity, creating scarcity artificially, wars created that don't have to be created. I mean, and this is stuff that people have talked about 100 years ago. Competent soldiers have said there's no reason to have a war, but it's, what is the system, and that's what we need to look at as human beings on a level. Like, what are these systems in place? Are they there for our benefit, rather than fighting each other and becoming more and more divided? Whether it's Pride flag, whether it's Hamas, Zion, whether it's whatever it is, Black Lives Matter, white.
Whatever you believe in, you shouldn't be fighting each other for that belief. If someone's hating you for something, it's because of condition, and it's because it's willfully intended for that person to think like that. They want that to happen so that there is that divide, there is that issues created in society, so that they can come up with a program and say, look, we're trying to address this issue.
Right.
We are here for you. Look, we've created these programs to address these issues that are...
The saying is not divided we stand, it's united we stand. And by the way, the white guy and the black guy that I talked about earlier, they became amazing friends. And so they were a resource to each other. And so, what unites us is that we're kind of, I don't want to use the word victims, but we're swimming in the system that, like, well, every 4 years you get to vote. So it's really your system, it's here for you.
Yeah.
Every 4 years you can vote.
That's what I was saying.
Go ahead.
So the voting part, to where, like, ask you, go and do something, vote. And to me, I don't think voting is what's benefited. It shows that we support the system as is. So we're voting for someone to continue to lie and manipulate the system to control us. And I say, the thing that we should do as a society, as a country, as a whole, is don't vote. Because what are they going to do? Because that's going to scare them more than anything, us going out and voting for them again. They're like, good, we have them under our control. They're going to do what we think is best for them, and we'll give them a system to show that, look, it's up to you guys who you choose. Right. Just like the mayor candidates. There's 4.
I understand Jesse's point of view. I don't know if I'm totally on board, but I certainly understand what you're saying. Yeah. And I can see what dots he's connecting. Like, it makes sense, but even if it didn't make sense, we could talk about it.
Yeah. And that's why I'm just saying, like, there's another way. Like, why are we following a colonized way that has been continued to oppress us for years?
Exactly. I mean, we are in a colonial system.
And to not vote right now, it's not to not vote forever. It's not to keep this democratic system alive. It's just, why are we voting for liars? Why are we voting for someone who's willing to manipulate us as people, willing to hurt our families, and then willing to profit off of that, and then call us sick, and call us mentally ill?
So the first thing about humanity getting stronger is, who are you being? You are responsible for you, and who are you being in your life? Who are you being with other people? Are you being a united we stand human being? Or are you being a divided we fall human being? And, you'd be surprised what commonalities you have with someone. You'd really be surprised. Really. Because we have much more in common, no matter what stripes we wear on our back.
We all smile.
We all hurt. We all want
sad. Yeah, there's like 6 emotions that are shared across the world.
We all want to survive.
Yeah, there's 6. I think there's 6 emotions or something like that are shared universally across the world. So someone says.
we all want to be happy. We all want peace.
Yeah, it's just like how we've been conditioned to think of happiness. So, and that's where it comes to conditioning. That's a huge thing on our mind, because we think that our mind is telling us this. So how is it conditioned? And those things are very a slippery slope, because your mind is telling you these things, but it's like a computer. Whatever you program it to do, that's what it's going to do. It doesn't matter if you say, nope, it's programmed to do that. That's what it's going to do. You can't tell it to do something else. Try. You have to learn to reprogram it.
See, that it brings me to a point about brainwashing, right? So we all, to a degree, have been brainwashed. All of us, to a degree. And when brainwashing is successful, you don't know that you've been brainwashed. Because if you know you've been brainwashed, it wouldn't work. So, and this is part of the very important key, of living your life as a free person is know who you are. And when this person voted for a party that I didn't like and I want to kill them, well, examine that. Why is that? Why is that a healthy thing? Like, what is that coming from?
Exactly.
Because I would suggest if you want to kill someone because they voted for the wrong party, that you need to find something within yourself which is toxic and unhealthy for you. Never mind if that, let's say this person was expendable, but for your own sake, there's something toxic in there, right? So yes, have an opinion. It's wonderful to have an opinion. We have judgment, God-given judgment for a reason. And we also have God-given grace for a reason. So give yourself grace, give other people grace.
Judgment's also like a slippery one too, because judgment can be, yes, judgment's good for you. Like if you touch a stove that's hot, but this guy looks like an idiot, or like he shouldn't be doing that. Like, why is he
Yeah, that guy asking for change, like he's somehow less of a human than I am.
Yeah, like
right?
those judgments.
That judgment is actually not true because you don't know that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
He might be a spiritual giant compared to you.
Exactly. Maybe his family, his wife died, lost money. He had no other ways. He was depressed and, ended up on the streets because he couldn't cope. And then there was no one to help him with that. So it became living on the streets.
But, going to that same example, if let's say that person's life was put on us like a sweater, maybe we'd be dead. Maybe that person's way stronger than we are, and they're still alive, right? And they're asking for change and trying to survive.
That's true. Because
so we don't know. You literally don't know until you connect with someone and talk with them, and give them that space to express who they are. You don't know until
because we're all given the situations that we're in, the negative stuff that we have to endure. That's our strength. Like that's how strong we are as people. It's just that the system conditions you to think that you're sick, and then you end up thinking that you're different from society. You take in all these judgments, so it's almost like telekinesis in a sense, because all these negative thoughts about who you are, even though you might have been correct on this thing that you were saying, but people thought you were crazy. So then all these labels now come into you, and that's who you are.
And that's a very dangerous aspect of judgment, because the judgment we pass on someone, they can absorb it, they can feel it. And you gave the example earlier where you're like pretending to listen to somebody with a different point of view, but in your head, you're like, what a total schmuck. So if that's happening in your head, that's affecting that person.
Yeah.
So our judgments, like, watch them.
Especially if that person thinks,
because you don't want to hurt anybody.
Especially if you're close with that person,
because you hurt yourself
thinks.
When you hurt someone. Sorry, go ahead, brother.
No, like when that person if you think that person's trustworthy or close to you,
the person who's like shaming internally.
Thinking that's very harmful. And then like as you get further apart, it's not as harmful, but it sleeps in. But that's just. Oh, sorry. Itchy eyes.
I thought you were going to cry. It's okay to cry. So no, I think that's a wonderful intro and medium part on that topic. I thought it was a very important topic, and I don't want to pretend that I haven't made a mistake in that area many times. But this is it's an ideal that I want to strive towards, and I have had success stories in my life where I came together with someone and we had polar opposite views, and we gave each other space, and we started to understand each other, and both of us were richer for that experience.
Yeah, and that's an important part too, is to have the people like that, because then the system won't be able to inflict what it's doing. Mm-hmm. So the only way they could do it is because we're all fighting, and that's like it's sad, because like that's what I think, how even Children's Aid gets away with constantly tearing families apart, taking children in, because we're easily triggered. We're easily set to emotion. So if you're of low income, you need to be very wary, because you don't have any protection. They say there's a safety net, but there's no protection.
Because you're seen as more like we can manage you.
Yeah.
Because you're not able to manage you. We're going to manage you.
We'll make people see who we want them to see you as.
Right.
And we could influence that because we have the power, we have the doctors, we have the clout.
Right.
Where you depend on the system, so already people think of you as nothing.
Right.
They already think you deserve what you get. And so that's where you're at end. So that way of being loving and kind and taking their treatment, regardless of how demeaning it is, will prevent them from being able to further do that to others. So being able to hold that for yourself, you're holding that for others. And that's what's important too, especially with children's aid. I don't want to take it too much on that.
So yeah, grace, ask for it and you'll find it. If you want to find it, you ask for it and it will come to you, I think. If you have that intention.
If your heart is for that, it doesn't matter how hateful those people are to you, your heart will bring you from that. It's kind of like I wrote this like paper where like it was like when I was going through my problems, it was like there was like a string pulling my head through to the light. Like even though I didn't know what I was doing, it was just something like pulling me and guiding me because I wanted it. And I truly wanted it. I wasn't just saying it to get something, to be something. I took what do you call the loss? I took I don't know what the word is. I took my lumps, I took what comes with it to
so
really
you took
love.
your lumps and you didn't retaliate.
Yeah, so I learned to love that way by taking these things, processing
and not
understanding.
Back.
Yeah, not being you did this to me, and it's like okay, those things hurt me. Like what is it that I can do to address this in a different way so that they can see me in a different light?
Because otherwise it just becomes a slapping competition.
Yeah.
And then nobody gets anywhere.
Yeah, and then they continue with their system the way it is, and with low income, you're very more at risk because you don't have the money to protect yourself, and that's where I believe the system is missing because there's a middle class that they support because they have money, and then so when low class complains that this system is doing these things to it, it becomes conspiracy theories. And then you get angry and you're trying to defend yourself. Like, what is wrong with you? Don't you see that this is happening to me? And they're like, but look what they did for me. And it's like, okay, if you could really separate your conditioning to see that money and power have an effect on how you're treated within the system, maybe we'll get somewhere because people will start helping each other. So, yeah.
Every person counts. And it's true because you can consider yourself like a cell within an organism. Like every cell in that organism is important. Like your toe is important, your nose is important, your heart is important. Like every part of you is important. Every person on this planet is important. They're here for a reason.
Yeah, it makes me think of this like I can't remember where it's from, my school or analogy about making a burger.
Oh yeah.
Like how are you going to make a burger? Like
you need all these parts.
How are you going to make the tools? Like you need the tools to kill it. You have to skin it, cut it. Like you have to find it, hunt it. Like
hunt the cow. But no, but to make
hard to get those guys.
To make a burger involves. It's a good example. It takes so many steps, right? And if you're a vegetarian person, we could say making a pencil. So you're going to get the graphite from some country. You're going to get the wood from some country. You're going to get the paint made somewhere. You're going to get the aluminum that holds the rubber band on there. You're going to get the rubber from somewhere else. Then you're going to get different people with different, like, it's so many steps just to make something like a pencil, a burger, a pencil, let alone something complicated like a car. So same thing with humanity. We need all of humanity to respect each other and to love each other. And that's what all the masters have said, whether it's...
And we all have parts to play. And that one part isn't better than the other part just because he's famous or because he has this or that. Like, each part you're doing, if you love what you're doing, your life will prosper, regardless of having nothing. Because you'll have more than what you need. And I really stand by that as the heart. And so, yeah.
So have that grace, especially with people that it's hard to, because that's how you're exercising your grace. That's how you're exercising your love, is that black guy giving the KKK guy room to speak and not to shut him down. And that planted a seed. And that caused who knows what happened as a result of that. Because the white guy's got families and friends. The black guy's got families and friends. So those two men, what they did, who knows what the ramifications are, of that. And they're good. So let's be that. Let's be that.
It's huge ramifications, regardless of if people see it or not. That type of love and interaction and change in the world, it changes everything. So say like a tree dies, gets like decomposes. We don't see what it's doing, but it's given itself back to the earth, given itself back to life, and what it's meaninless.
Right. It all has a meaning. It all has a purpose. It all has a place in there.
So, all right, I guess we'll leave it here.
So when I decompose into the ground, I want to get back to the earth.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be a tree.
I'm biodegradable.
I want to be planted under a tree. But yeah, all right. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. If you have any questions or comments or future topics you'd like Jesse and myself to address, please
don't vote.
Please leave them in the comments. All right. Ciao, guys.